Hello and welcome to the iRacing Happy Hour here on iRacing Live, and we are getting ready to get back to our roots here in today's style of racing. It's the iRacing Clio Cup and the Rookie Dirt Car Street Stock Extreme Sim Racing Series. So it might be lower tiers on the rung, but it's full of action. I'm joined, of course, by real-world IMSA driver Joey Atterbury to help bring us through this. And Joey, I can't wait, because honestly, some of my favorite racing is these cars are basically the ones that everybody cuts their teeth on.
You gotta get started somewhere, and some of the best racing happens at your local tracks every weekend, and that's kind of like what we're going to be seeing here today. The beginning rung with these Renault Clio Cup cars, and it's really interesting to me because I actually started way back in those Volkswagen TDI Cup cars, so it can draw a lot of relations there with these.
Absolutely. It's going to be not only with the real world that you see drivers kind of come up through cars like these, but even here in the virtual world. This is in the D class, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, that you can very quickly get to be driving these, not immediately, but definitely with those street stocks. You can hop in those as soon as you want if you sign up for iRacing, and we'll take a look at them pretty soon here, especially at a track like Okayama. Also, another one that is free content, a track that you can race as soon as you sign up for iRacing, and does put on a pretty good show. And I know I'm biased because it's the track I've won the most races in iRacing, but I liked racing there, as we're going to take a look at it here, Joey. And it's a decent length, actually, as it's got itself a fair bit of lap time, especially in these Clio Cup cars. But one thing that I would note about them, a lot of hairpins, so I got to imagine plenty of passing opportunities.
I think it suits the cars very, very well. You see the long straightaways with the tight hairpins, and with these cars and the initial front end bite, kind of suits them. So yeah, it gives you some passing opportunities, gives you some side-by-side racing opportunities. And also, what's important about Okayama, it's a very technical circuit, so you have to learn how to drive these cars as well.
You can see it's pretty decently high in elevation, not super up there, but it's actually up in the mountains. And you'll see that in our pictures, that it's just basically nestled amongst the hills and kind of goes up and down along these tiers with only a little over 2 miles, about 3.7 kilometers that the drivers will have to do per lap. And for those laps, there's not going to be many of them because it is only 15 minutes for this series. So it's relatively short in these Renault Clio Cup cars, and it is fixed setup. So the drivers really have no say in it other than to get in the car and try to make the best of their own talent and try to get the best line out there. And these launch every hour. Now, that Class D, that's just above Rookie, which is what you joined in on Joey. And I know you've joined a little bit more recently than I have. So explain to these viewers kind of what we talk about when we say Rookie and D Class and what that means.
Yeah, when you first get on the service, you have a few races and series that are available to you, and you got to go and log the time in. Make sure you're safe out there on the racetrack, advance through your license rating a little bit, and then you get into these other classes of license ratings and cars. And like you were mentioning, the Renault Clio here is the D class, which is your first step up above the rookie category. So as soon as you graduate out of that first rung, these cars in this race is available to you.
Indeed. So you could probably expect yourself within a week or two to be racing these. I mean, honestly, if you really wanted to hustle it and you're a pretty clean driver, you could do it in a couple days and be running up with these various drivers. Now, we are racing top split here. So this is going to be those that you probably are not going to be up against with. We're seeing about a 3,300 strength of field for iRating out as we watch Veerman continue to complete his qualifying laps. They're in the early stages of this qualifying, and they get 2 laps, but it has to be clean. They can't go outside of the boundaries of the circuit to have that time counted. And with how much they have to push these forward front-wheel drive cars, Joey, I imagine it's going to be tough to try and get right up to that limit and get the most out of it.
I think that's kind of one of the biggest things with this series, is definitely kind of promoting the driving aspect of it. You mentioned all the cars are identical, this fixed setup out here. So you have to learn how to drive the car, how to drive the track in a safe manner, and then get out there with the other competitors and learn how to cooperate with everybody on the same playground, if you will.
Looks like Tommy is just starting his first lap. Mäkinen there from Finland. Going to see how he can do against some of our drivers from other various parts of the world, all the way from Club Iberia, UK&I, Benelux. Actually, I see one from Africa/South Africa I'm seeing as a club. It's not someone, that's not one that we see as often out here. So cool to see so many variety of locations. As one neat thing about sim racing is you're actually literally going to get to compete against real people from around the world.
It is so cool. You know, when you think of club racing or getting started out there, you know, you think of your local stuff. But yeah, here on iRacing, you really can race against anybody from Estonia, the Netherlands, South Africa. It can be coming from anywhere out there.
And don't forget, if you do want to get racing, it's 40% off an account if you sign up now. So go to iRacing.com and log on today to try and get your racing career started in the sim racing world. Frankly, I'm glad I did, because it's put me where I am right now and getting to call these awesome races. And little did I know about, gosh, 13 years ago that I would be here with you, Joey, getting to see these cars out on Okayama. We're still waiting for the first lap times to come in. It does take a bit to get around. They're not super high-powered machines. And finally, we have some on the board, lapping at about a minute 44 and 45 for the quicker drivers, it looks like.
Yeah, right now, Lamela on the provisional pole with that lap of a 144.599 currently. But as you mentioned, all of these drivers are just starting to put in their first lap, and going out, they will have time to complete the second lap. You mentioned they do get 2 timed laps here in qualifying. See if they improve on their second time. And this is actually your current provisional pole sitter, as he just gets knocked down to the second place spot as Lantos takes that away.
Indeed, he's about a 10th and a half ahead of Lamela, who we're going to follow down to the end of the back stretch into the hairpin. And we'll see if he can tuck it in nicely. A lot of banking on this corner, and then look at the steep drop downhill into Revolver.
I love this section of this racetrack, Joe. This is the most technical area. You really got to dance it on the brakes. Make sure you keep the front end grip on these front wheel drive machines, because as soon as you overstep that limit of adhesion on the front end, the car just doesn't want to turn. And through those tight hairpin turns, you got to keep the front end underneath you.
Absolutely. So checking out Lantos now, who's taken that top spot away from him, both of them on their second lap. Sometimes these second laps can be the ones that you really want to focus on as well, Joey, because much like real life, they need to get the tires up to temperature. And unfortunately, in real life, they only have just this that one out lap to get them up to the working range that they want.
Well, and I know that it takes a little while to get used to everything out here in the sim, and especially with the tires. And looks like we got Chadwick sitting right here, probably waiting to go out. And Joe, I would assume that they're probably waiting for optimal track conditions, or see what everybody else lap time is doing, and then try to go out and match it.
Absolutely. And it is pretty warm out here today. It's 116 Fahrenheit on the track currently. So maybe he's waiting for it to cool down, or he could be trying to start from the back. Now, if you don't set a qualifying time, you still get to race, but you'll be lined up according to your I rating behind everybody who did set a time. And some people do that because they think it's going to be a little bit messy in the mid-pack. Some people just enjoy a challenge.
You know, all of those are correct answers. Sometimes it is fun to come from the back of the pack and drive your way through and learn how to make those passes safely and efficiently. And here we got Marinero on the racetrack, the number 12 car. This is on to the longest straightaway, Joe, on this racetrack. And you see it's also uphill coming out of that corner. Getting the corner exit is so crucial.
It really is. They have to try and use every ounce of momentum that they can, because, as I said, these cars are not all that powerful. So it's all down to keeping that momentum going. And as we watch Alvaro weave his way down the hill here into the final technical section, I think he's got enough time to set this second lap. They get about 8 minutes worth to try and put those 2 laps in. After that, unfortunately, there's no completing the hot laps. Once those 8 minutes are up, you are sent to the grid.
Yeah, and I do think he'll be able to sneak this lap in. He's only got a couple corners left, and you see how twisting and back and forth the back half of this racetrack really is. And you got to be careful not to overstep the limit on those apexes, and then out into a couple flowing right-handers, which leads you out onto the front straightaway. He will be able to sneak this last lap in.
Mäkinen currently holds the provisional pole. Let's see what Marinero has for them as he crosses the timing line of 46.9. Becomes, well, a 46.931. Very, very close for him. And the final seconds as he improves just slightly, but he'll stay in 17th. It's going to be tight confines in this series because of this being such a high strength of field race and it being top split. Here is your grid order with Mäkinen starting on the pole, Gonzalez in second, then it's Luis Andrade P3. Zavok Lantos starts fourth. Alier Zemoloa, excuse me, pardon me if I screw that up, starts fifth. And then sixth, Joey, will be Ismael Lamela.
Yeah, they are in 7th place position. We have Pedro Sarave, Jack Wilson there in the 8th spot, Mehdi Mokrani in the 9th place position, Ali Koglar there in the 10th spot, Lucas Valley 11th, Franz Vons Extra in there in the 12th place position.
Sean Weber starts 13th. Daniel Morpy in the 14th position. Last couple that set times are Trowbridge, Veerman, Marinero, and then Chadwick and Villaume will start at the back of this 19-car field, almost the maximum that you can have out here, and it is standing start. So the run down the first corner, which is literally called first corner, is going to be important to try and get that track position today as we see them lined up and ready to go. I think we're waiting on Mokrani to get out there, and then Chadwick I see with an empty slot towards the back. Chadwick could start from pit lane as well if he chooses to, but with him starting literally on the last row, I don't see reason for him to elect to do that here today. It looks like we also need Gonzalez there on the very front to try and work his way out there. Now he is there. So what about Mokrani? As it looks like now we do have everyone out. So the engines start to rev as the lights come up and the green flag is out off the line. A little bit of smoke from those front two. Everybody else very solid as they get the power down. Lantos with a very good run, looking for third place immediately as they fly into turn one. And so far, no incidents that I can see out of this first corner. Looks like we're clean, Joey.
Yeah, pretty clean getaway, especially for the front two right now. Mäkinen and Gonzalez kind of leading the way, and everybody else zippering into single file. You see a couple cars getting loose, dropping tires in the dirt, but no spins or heavy contact.
A little bit of an attack for the lead, as well as some battles here in the mid-pack. We see the number one of Andrade trying to get his way in there. Car off track in the background. Valley, unfortunately, finding himself into the gravel as we ride on board with the battle here in the mid-pack coming down into the hairpin. And looks like just a little bit of an edge for Lamela, but he's not deep enough on the brakes. Oh my goodness, and off the course, Andrade finds himself in the kitty litter.
Yeah, and up front, it's Mäkinen holding on to the lead over Gonzalez, and what a race down the back straightaway. And look at this, already tucking out of line. This is Gonzalez taking a look down the inside. This is still the first lap, and these guys are battling it out.
And as we continue to watch this battle for the lead, apparently we've got an important teaser happening on the iRacing Twitter, so go check that out. Kevin Bobbitt himself has posted something intriguing. I actually have to see because I don't know what he's posted. As Gonzalez is back down to third with Mäkinen trying to fend him off. Mokrani. Mokrani was marked as our leader, but it looks like he is going to come back down. Something strange happened there. Now he's being shown as 19th and a lap down. So timing and scoring catching up. Meanwhile, switching back as we go side by side for the lead into Williams. And this time it looks like Gonzalez does have that position.
And here comes Lantos on the inside, which will be the driver's outside coming into this hairpin. But we've been talking a couple cars. This is 5 cars battling it out for the lead. I think this is a product of front-wheel drive racing, lower horsepower, and like we were talking, this is true club-level stuff.
Good exit there coming out of Atwood by Gonzalez, but now it's 3 wide for third place between Zamaloa, between Lantos and Lamella, inside to Oyer, and it looks like maybe he's going to be able to get this one away. Oh, still having to fight hard as Lantos not giving up the ghost. He's got the inside down into Revolver. That'll get him P3. Fierce stuff. I'm also getting word that it is actually a teaser for rain. Now I'm really sad that I can't go and look at Twitter right now because I want to go see.
Yeah, rain in this simulator will definitely be interesting. Oh, a little bit of contact right there going into the hairpin. We saw 3 wide into 1 space, and that never works. I can give you blocked, and I can tell you 3 into 1 just doesn't happen.
That was Wilson who caught it, and I'm guessing for front-wheel drive cars, it's kind of the opposite of what you experience as we watch the replay of the rear-wheel drive cars, that you got to just keep your foot in it, but this was too much foot in it on the first lap.
Oh, yeah, outbraking themselves. Going in, we mentioned that was the longest straightaway into the heaviest braking zone. Got to be careful, even with the brake pedal on these cars, not to overshoot it.
And just slithered off. That was the number 1 of Andrade, unfortunately, that just overcooked that first turn. And not only that, as off course that orange car was, I believe, Chadwick, actually, that went off and managed to get it back on. He's kind of poking his nose here on Kaglar, but we're on board with Sean Weber behind them. No change of position. But I was going to say, one thing that matches real life as well, tires and brakes, not up to temperature at the start of these races, Joey.
No, you got to wait till everything warms up and especially gets up to pressure. And sometimes it takes a couple laps. Sometimes it takes a few laps. And with this stuff being such new content, with these cars being so new, I think all of these competitors are still learning all of those limits, including the warm-up laps.
Yeah, this is literally week 2 of official racing for these cars. They had the week 13 is a bit of an off there. Catches it as Sean Weber gathers it up, and he's going to return in 13th, but that was a costly mistake.
Costly, but you see front-wheel drive, just kind of keep your foot in it, point the steering wheel the direction that you need to go, and oftentimes it gets back going where you need to go headed, and pretty impressive from Sean Weber.
He's going to join his friend Andrade, who also had a mistake early in this race. So both of them sent backwards, and we're seeing just how tough it is to try and charge back to the front of the field in this series, just because everything is so close amongst each other. Look at them weave down the front stretch, trying to break that slipstream.
Well, that was Gonzalez, our leader, and he's slowly but surely edging out his lead over Mäkinen right now, and I think he's right at that limit, Joe, about 1.2 seconds, just trying to get rid of any slipstream behind him.
Doing all he can. This is the battle here for the fourth position between Zamalio and Lamella that we're watching, coming down once again into the braking for Atwood, and then quite an uphill heading towards the hairpin. Important to keep that momentum up. Another battle behind them, this time between Kaglar, Chadwick, and Wilson.
And this is going down that back straightaway, and you see all the cars lined up, and I actually have my eye on Chadwick right now because he's right in the middle of this 3-wide braking duel, and looks like Wilson's going to make a late lunge down to the inside, take that position away from William Chadwick.
Textbook maneuver, but a fight back. Chadwick thinks about it and decides it's not worth trying to turn that car ahead. They'll fight again another day. That battle for 4th up ahead hasn't changed position, but still frighteningly close, unfortunately, for Oyer. So as they dive once again into Redmond, a lot of these corners named after famous racers. Hobbs, anybody in the broadcast world ought to know that name pretty well. And out towards Mike Knight now. It's a swift couple of right-handers onto the front stretch. As we check back in, we had a problem here. Not sure who that was just pulling off.
I think that was Lucas Valley back there with a little bit of issues, but back up front here, you see Gonzalez still weaving down the front straightaway, and Joe, it got me thinking a little bit more about that tweet about the rain that Kevin Bobbitt put out there. And these cars, I think, would be the perfect car to take out there in the first session in the rain. Front-wheel drive, something easy to kind of tiptoe your way around the track.
Oh, yeah. Get some fun little drifting in as you just kind of chuck it around the corners. That'd be a blast. As once again, we see the battle here up towards the front between Oyer and Ismail, and breaking into Atwood around the outside. The 15 car carrying great speed. Could he actually manage to get this done? That'll be a difficult task of that long right-hander.
Well, and he is. He's side by side. He got a slightly better exit here, and the only problem, he's on the left side of the racetrack going into this braking zone. You see he's already backing off of the gas, realizes he needs to be on the other side in order to make that pass.
It sounds like we got to replan what happened to Valley, so let's see if we can deconstruct this. And heading down the hill, he's already got a little bit of a touch. Big side-by-side racing going on out through Piper. Someone in front having a little trouble. They're both going to pick it up. But we saw him going slow here in the back-to-back hairpins of Redmond and Hobbs. What happens? Whoa! Well, that happens.
Yeah, just too hard on that brake pedal, Joe, and locks him up. And when you get those lockups happening, it just doesn't want to turn on you. He went off into the gravel, as you saw.
So we come back to the battle for second place now. Mäkinen versus Lantos. Both of them having changed positions by one since they've gridded up. Mäkinen down from the pole. Lantos up from fourth place. Can he manage to get higher onto the podium? And does he have anything for Gonzalez if he can overtake this red machine as they start yet another lap? We're starting to get to the final moments of this one, though. Remember, only 15 minutes, and we've got about 5 minutes left.
Hey, yeah, you had to remind me. Just over 5 minutes remaining, and about a second and a half back, this second place battle. And Joe, look at this battle for 10th place. Might only be a couple cars for second place, but we got 4 cars battling it out for what would be a top 10 at the end of this one.
Trowbridge, Andrade, Ekris, Weber, all together in a bit of a clump. And we know that Andrade is out of position. He's going to try and make it less out of position as he charges up the inside. Meanwhile, we're going to look at Lantos once again. Challenge for second place on Mäkinen. Can he go the long way around? You've got that banking to help you. Not enough help, unfortunately, for the yellow machine.
No, but he's tucked right up under the bumper of Mäkinen right now. And I think as long as you keep applying the pressure, that's the best thing you can do. Maybe the competitor in front will slip up, make a mistake from all of that rear view mirror being blocked by your car.
Finn doing a good job up to this point, holding off the number 16 and doing exactly what he needs to do, putting that pressure on, getting right up to that bumper. That's one thing that I do love about touring car style racing such as this, is that they can get pretty physical.
They definitely can. And with the front wheel drive, there's actually a little bit of leeway. You know, you can kind of lean on people a little bit more, and especially if you get them loose, all they got to do is keep that foot down, point the steering wheel in the right direction, and usually it saves itself.
Down into the first turn once again, not close enough that time. In the background, you can kind of see the number 3 and the number 15 still kind of hovering around each other, trying to decide fourth place as well. Don't forget, we've got more racing coming up after this, so don't leave after these next 4 minutes are up, because we're going off to the dirt street stops at Lanier in a moment. Into the braking of Atwood, and he is not as close as we saw him before. Maybe this is Lantos just backing it off, trying to set himself up for something better later.
And you see him just tucked in the slipstream, doing what he can to try to reel in that gap a little bit, but I think more importantly, just hit your marks, make sure you don't overshoot those brake zones, and give yourself an opportunity for one of the last laps as we got some more action going down the back straightaway side by side. This is the number 14 car.
That's Trowbridge on the outside with Ekris down the inside. They almost came together there on the straights. Ekris is going to get the position. Trowbridge demoted down into 13th. This is behind Andrade as well. It's that group that we were watching a little bit earlier. Still has not separated.
No, it hasn't. And honestly, I don't think it's going to separate until the checkered flag. It's just the type of racing that these cars produce. And every single race is going to be like this. No matter what split, it's going to be packed nose to tail.
You can see that lockup as well. I think that was Andrade who just sent it in as hard as he could down into Redmond. And now through Mike Knight as they try and get away from one another, especially on the long front stretch. Who can get the advantage? So important to get the run off this turn right. And they are starting to reel in Mike Veerman in the number 9. It's becoming a 5-car battle now.
5 cars all trying to get that top 10 position, and about 2 laps to go for these competitors out here. So time is also starting to run out to make that move.
So 2 laps left to go for our drivers. And coming down through the Moss S, Veerman very much being caught up by Andrade. Remember, he's out of position side by side behind him, though, as Trowbridge down to the inside of Van Ekris. And in front of them, somebody is off course through Atwood. They might get yet another position here. That is Ali Kaglar, unfortunately, having trouble. So we ride on board with the number 3 just ahead of them. Looking back at Lamella, not close enough. We jump back once again to that battle that is now being joined by yet another friend. And unfortunately, looks like he doesn't have enough speed as Van Ekris on the inside of Kaglar. No, excuse me, that's Trowbridge that he was on the inside of. And it looks like Kaglar's going to get away with it, but getting sent into a big slide. That was indeed Van Ekris.
Yeah, Van Ekris just got tapped a little bit in that quarter panel and got sent, you saw, but jumping back up. I believe this is the battle for our lead here. Lantos still trying to find a way around Mäkinen, but looking at this time, I believe he's only going to have about 1 lap left.
Now, the one question I don't think we can answer is whether or not that's the Tommi Mäkinen. I believe rally fame for a famous Finnish driver, but he is a Finn and maybe just named after him. Who knows? They've fallen off of the lead by about 3 seconds currently. So Lantos, his best hope is to at least get a P2 today.
Yeah, and it really has been the story of Victor Gonzalez out front. Once he got out there, he has said, see you later to these two, but the fight is still on for this 2nd and 3rd place position. Who is going to finish where?
And if they come together, let's not forget, they've only got about 2 seconds back to the battle for P4. So this could get exciting if they somehow make contact here. And defending the inside, Mäkinen making sure to hug the right-hand side of the track by a long ways. Now he moves back to the racing line.
Yeah, just trying to do whatever he can to not give an advantage to the car following. And I think clear by 5 going into the brake zone should be enough, but he does have a brake lockup. Don't want to have any mistakes in these last few corners.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of smoke from these cars having to really try and send them in deep into these turns. Because obviously they've got to try and get that rear rotated a little bit better without the rear wheel drive. Somebody on the attack there behind them, dipping to the inside. Lamela actually and Zamolia, is traded positions, I think, as Ismail's now down in P5. But up at the front, Gonzalez started from the front row. Once he got into the lead, there was no looking back. And for the happy hour today in the iRacing Clio Cup, Victor Gonzalez will win at Okayama.
What a race from Victor. And here we got Tommi Mäkinen finishing 2nd and Lantos coming home, finishing the podium in that 3rd place position.
Lamella going to have to settle for P5, unfortunately, as the rest of them trickle across the line. Not too many super close battles. Don't see anybody able to try and overtake here at the last asking. But we will get 17 of the 19 drivers finishing on the lead lap, so that's great to see. Valley was really the only one that I saw have to take a tow at any point, and Mokrani had to visit pit lane briefly himself. But great running. Loved the action that we saw out there. There's your finishing order, with Gonzalez taking the victory and Mäkinen finishing P2 by not that far ahead, about half a second over Lantos. Zamaloa finished P4 with Lamella in 5th, Wilson P6, and Saravia in P7. Chadwick doing great from the back of the pack without the qualifying, going from 18th to 8th. Then you've got Andrade, unfortunately, finishing 9th, and Veerman in 10th.
There you got Kaglar in the 11th place position, followed up with Trowbridge in 12th, Sean Weber 13th, Thomas Viome there 14th, Franz Van Ekris, Daniel Morpy, Marinaro, Macrani, and then Valley rounding out those 19 cars total today, Joe.
Great stuff here on the twisty side of things, back and forth on paved road. But what about the dirt side? We'll see that in just a moment as we're going to take a quick break. Stick around. We've got more to come here on iRacing.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
World of Outlaws Dirt Racing is available now.
Who wins the race? Kerwin! It is Femi Ola, the sophomore!
I give it all that I got.
Welcome back to iRacing. We're here for happy hour, and we're going to be getting to that in a moment. But first, we want to remind you that the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series is going to be back on March 28th at 9 p.m. Eastern at Richmond. More short track racing, and can't wait to see that. One of my favorite, most unique tracks on the eNASCAR schedule. Although this season, that's going to be tough to compete against, considering they've got Monza later on for that one. But definitely tune in as next Tuesday we'll be back with that action. Then, of course, don't forget that the Porsche the Esports Super Cup is back on April 1st as well, 1900 GMT. That's 7 p.m. for those of you that aren't as good about trying to translate that. 7 p.m. GMT at the Red Bull Ring, as the Porsche Super Cup cars are going to be finding themselves having to really fight hard to get track position there. Even though passing is possible, it's going to be a doozy. Speaking of passing being tough and short track racing here, Joey, we head off to the dirt side. This one, drivers and fans that sign up on iRacing really can hop in and be racing these things within the hour.
Yeah, if you go and sign up right now, you can go in and get into that next race next hour and be racing out here, slinging dirt with everybody, tearing those visor tear-offs and These cars are a ton of fun, especially on this venue. You go slip sliding around, have a ton of counter steer, kind of feel like a drift car out there a little bit.
I have to admit, I didn't come up on dirt racing. I followed more paved stuff, and getting into it here in iRacing hooked me almost immediately. It was so much fun. Enough fun that I'm actually working for a dirt track this year now. So that tells you. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the other cool thing I think about iRacing. It exposed me to so many different types of racing that I didn't know about before. We're going to take a look at this one, though, in case you aren't familiar with Lanier. And it actually isn't a dirt track in real world right now. It was at one time. So they've recreated that here in iRacing with just about 0.37 of a mile. It is itty bitty. And they're going to have to fight for every inch on this little clay surface.
And it is across the street from Road Atlanta, a place that I know very well. And Joe, you talk about itty bitty. It is. It's pretty much inside of the parking lot there in Brazelton. And it is a very small racetrack, but the racing is fierce.
And here is your grid for this one. Jake Daniels going to be starting it on the pole with Tanner Van Doren in P2. Max Brady will start from third as Richie Ryan is in P4. It's Austin Staley in the fifth position, and then outside of row 3 sees Eric Warman.
There we have Carson Coulter in seventh spot, Leonard Stanfill, Harrison Rivet, and then Jack Mace round out the 10 cars here today.
Yep, it's smaller splits here in the rookie series. They do that intentionally to try and keep things from being a little too chaotic, because this is where everybody's learning. And it still puts on plenty of action, I can assure you of that. It's only going to be 20 laps here today. There's no yellow flags as well, so this is going to be straight through. It's another one that's fixed setup, so you don't have to worry about knowing how to set your car up. You hop in the car and practice, and then you get going. As we mentioned, it is the rookie license. And this is another one that takes off every hour. So if you didn't have a good one go off, those 20 laps go quickly, Joey, and you can be back in the car racing again.
It's something that I often do when I'm racing around here in the simulators, especially if you get into the groove out here. You find a track and a car combination you like. You don't just do one race. You end up doing 3, 4, 5 of them by the time you hop out.
So as they come around to start the second pace lap, they'll do 2 of them here and be on their way, rolling starts, as opposed to what we saw for the standing starts a little bit earlier. And watch those numbers. You've heard us referring to them and referring to iRating. That number here in these official sessions will indicate your skill level. iRating is determined by a formula that the sim uses based on where you finish in every one of your races. So if you do better, you get a higher number. You get a lower number on the car. So Jake Daniels is the highest amongst them right now as we get the green flag, and we are on our way. He immediately slots to the front, being able to hold back Tanner Van Doren back there in second. Look at them certainly fan out behind them as they're 3 wide and banging doors.
Yeah, already some typical short track bumping and banging a little bit further in the back as we're going to see the drivers really explore the racetrack. You see the front pack really down low right now, but I'm curious to see how much the racetrack will change over the course of the 20 laps.
Van Doren's keeping right on him. I got to give him credit. He's not letting him get away quickly, and especially with no caution flags in this one, he's going to have to try and stay close and be aggressive. He does go to the inside as we look at the 10 and the 4 behind them. This is the battle for 5th place, but Van Doren is already, there you can see on screen now, managing to get to the inside.
Yeah, he's definitely putting some pressure on Daniels, our leader, and you see the cars swinging back and forth, especially entering the corner. And the best way I can describe is it's a little bit like a dance, a rhythm, in order to get that weight where you need it.
Yeah, we had Mäkinen before. That's that Scandinavian flick that they're trying to use, but it works here on the oval side as well, as side by side for the lead. He might have the number 2 on his machine, but he thinks he's the best today. Van Doren is going to take it away as he slides in front, over under, maybe from the number 1, doesn't quite have the momentum.
No, Daniels gets a good run, looks to the inside, but thinks better of it. Van Doren to the point, leading the laps now, and we'll see if he's got the pace to start to run away.
They weave their way around this track. The straights are so short that it's practically one long curve, almost a circle for these cars as they work their way around. back in the mid-pack to Coulter, with Richie Ryan just behind in the number 4, trying to keep the pressure on.
And Joe, one thing that I'm noticing is look at the track start to change surface. That's so cool that iRacing does this. Here in the dirt world, the track changes and they have it modeled just like that.
That's one thing I do love about it. You can see the blue groove starting to be slicked up out there. That's going to have less grip, and the drivers will be looking for grip everywhere they can at every lap as the battle for the lead carries on. Now Daniels has the inside, is going to try and see if he can feed out Van Doren, but as the more they pound away, the more that inside line is going to be less desirable.
Yeah, but you know what? Daniels is really making it work right now. It's side by side for the lead, and it's actually brought up Max Brady in the 3rd place position. And if these two leaders keep battling it out side by side, we're going to have 3 cars fighting for the lead.
And he gets them, manages to slide in front. So the number 2 now tries to cut back underneath, see if he can pull a slide job, and actually he does. Nice smooth move from Van Doren as the number 3 of Brady suddenly becomes a part of the factor.
This is the short track racing that people love to see. This is why people go out every weekend to their local track. It is some of the best racing you'll be able to watch.
I can't encourage people enough. You've probably got a local short track near you, and if you're enjoying this, go support them, because you're going to see stuff like this out there. But if you can't, come on iRacing and join in, because this is very easily attainable to try and go out and join these drivers. Still fighting on the outside. Van Doren's making them work for it. We're down to 8 laps to go. Make that 7 once they come off the corner here. So what's it going to be when we get to the line? Is it going to be a drag race?
Well, and I think that the racetrack is starting to shift a little bit again. Now we're seeing the top groove come into play, being able to ride that cushion with Van Doren, although Daniel's still trying to make that bottom groove work, but lap after lap, he's going to have less and less grip.
Yeah, this is going to be fascinating to see who will have better grip by the end of the race. The inside or the outside is back again. That number 10's been in so much fun. This time, though, he's racing against the number 3. No, excuse me, against the number 8 there, trying to hold him off, and the 4 is instead on the defensive down to the inside.
Well, and I think one cool part about this battle for 5th place, we're seeing 3 different lines being used on the racetrack. Up front, we're seeing side by side, and a little bit further back, we got 3 wide, sometimes 4 coming out of the corners.
Brief switch between Daniels and Van Doren, as Daniels is going to go to the high side now, and Van Doren on the bottom, but they go single file once again, back of the field, still spreading out as they head through 3 and 4, but the number 10 of Carson has been doing a fantastic job on the defense today.
He really has. He hasn't had a moment to spare at all. He's had his rearview mirrors filled up the entire time, grabbing those tear-offs where you can, and just hang on a little bit longer. Only a couple more laps left.
Yeah, this, I think, is, now already down to 2 laps to go. Going to be the white flag next time by here for Jake Daniels. And Van Doren has dropped off. Whatever the one has done, it has worked a treat here in these final laps. He's no longer under threat as Barney gives them the 1 to go signal. The number 1 car comes out of 1 and 2, many car lengths clear of Van Doren into 3 and 4. All he has to do is bring it to the line, and victory awaits in top split for Jake Daniels here in Georgia.
You see the rest of the field coming through to take that checkered flag under Barney the Flagman, 3-4 wide to finish that one.
Very, very cool stuff that we get to see here during the iRacing happy hour. Loved getting to get back to dirt track racing, as hadn't called it in some time. And for Jake Daniels, he is going to take that victory. It'll be Tanner Van Doren P2 and Max Brady rounding out your podium. Carson Coulter in the number 10 is punching above his weight. He started from 7th and finished 4th. Richie Ryan was P5 and Austin Staley was in 6th. Harrison Rivet didn't set a qualifying time, climbed up to 7th. Same deal with Mace, up into P8 from 10th. Then you've got Leonard Stanfill in 9th and Eric Warman rounding out your field of 10 cars in the Dirt Car Street Stock Extreme Sim Racing Series. great stuff out there, Joey, and such a contrast, but in a cool way, between these two grassroots level of racing that, as we said earlier, not only can those who are looking to make it in the real world race, they can try and come here onto the sim and get into them very quickly.
Yeah, it's definitely the entry level of motorsports. Everybody has to start somewhere, and if you ask me, iRacing now is providing that platform not only to jump into these entry-level cars like what we just watched today, but progress your own way up through the sim ladder as well.
Yep, you have to work your license up, and you have to earn your stripes. Now, of course, you can race in all different types of cars and leagues and whatnot that maybe you haven't earned your license for, so you don't have to go and earn those. But if you want to do it in official racing, you got to go through that rookie DCBA up to until maybe you can get to pro. Joey, talking to a pro in the real world here, what did you think of these two?
I loved watching it. I loved calling it. You know, I never thought I would be here in order to call this race, and I actually have to thank iRacing a lot for it, because I started way back in the Volkswagen TDI Cup, which is very much we saw today, and it was kind of cool to go back down memory lane and kind of see what the next crop is, what this next group of drivers and cars is all about.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe those that we saw out on track today could be your next top runner with a pro license. Thanks for joining us here on the iRacing Happy Hour. I'm Joe Peak here with Joey Atterbury from IMSA. Tune in next time as we've got lots of racing action, and make sure to log on to iRacing.com today to join the service. Race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.